Venezuela, on Friday morning, a new flight carrying 174 migrants arrived at the Simón Bolívar International Airport as part of the Back to the Homeland government plan. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit the southern coast of Chile and Argentina. Chilean authorities have issued a tsunami alert for the region. And the Palestinian Authority in Gaza denounced that Israel is using hunger as a weapon of war. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Now we begin with the information. In Venezuela, on Friday morning, as part of the Back to the Homeland government plan, a new flight carrying 174 migrants arrived at the Simón Bolívar International Airport in Maiquetía, La Guaira. The U.S. flight that took off from El Paso, Texas, was received by the Venezuelan Minister for the Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, who specified that 3,646 nationals have been returned to the country in the last few days as part of the initiative of the Bolivarian government aimed at guaranteeing the safe and dignified return of Venezuelan citizens. In this regard, Cabello highlighted the action is an effort of coordination and teamwork and denounced the ongoing persecution of Venezuelan migrants in the U.S. and the Western government campaign to criminalize them.
It is an extraordinary coordination effort. It is a teamwork effort. But it also has to do with the instruction given by the president to bring Venezuelans back from wherever they are. It is difficult to find an operation similar to what we do in Venezuela. There is a real plan to attract migrants. That's what we do in Venezuela.
And through an official communique, the Venezuelan government categorically rejected a statement issued by the International Court of Justice regarding the provisional measures requested by Guyana against the Venezuelan electoral process for the selection of authorities in the state of Guayana Esequiba. In the statement, which described the measures as abusive and interventionist, Venezuela reaffirmed that it does not and will never recognize the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, nor will it comply with any decision issued by it to settle the territorial dispute over the Guayana Esequiba in a process that has been rigged from the outset and manipulated by anti-Venezuelan corporate interests that have nothing to do with justice. In this sense, the Bolivarian government stressed that this territorial dispute is governed by the 1966 Geneva Agreement, a legally binding instrument that established the obligation of the parties to settle the territorial dispute through a practical and mutually acceptable arrangement. Also adding that nothing in international law allows the International Court of Justice to interfere in matters that are exclusive to the domestic jurisdiction of Venezuela, nor to attempt to prohibit a sovereign act organized within the framework of its participatory political system and based on its constitution and national legislation. The statement goes on to underscore that the Guayana Esequiba is an inalienable part of Venezuelan territory and a legacy of their liberators. Its defense in a historical, constitutional, and moral mandate that unites the entire Bolivarian homeland. Finally, the Venezuelan reiterated its demand that the government of Guyana stop delaying direct negotiations and strictly comply with the Geneva Agreement as the sole valid path to a definite, peaceful, and satisfactory settlement for both parties regarding the territory of the Guayana Esequiba. And like every year in Venezuela for International Labor Day, workers across the country went to the streets to denounce the aggressions against their citizens and also their nation. More on this with our correspondent Bruno Falsi.
In another demonstration of the popular power of the Bolivarian Revolution, in Caracas, a multitude of people marched to support the government and demand the end of United States economic sanctions against Venezuela.
To all this revolutionary process that day by day has provided us with greater welfare and security in terms of food sovereignty, health, Social security in all aspects that we can mention. We are also protesting against the various sanctions and mistreatment that our Venezuelan people have experienced.
The main demand was the release of a 2-year-old baby, Michaelis Espinosa, kidnapped and separated from her family. She is kept hostage by the Trump administration. Her mother was in prison in USA and rescued by the Venezuelan government by one of their repatriation flights. Her father was sent to a prison in El Salvador.
Venezuela is also marching for its population that had to emigrate deceived when we could build a homeland here. And today we are experiencing a totally violent and subhuman situation, such as the kidnapping of this baby of our compatriot Michaelis. The situation also of her father and mother, whose rights to freedom and to want to return to their homeland were violated. So today we also march for her.
Bukele's government, subject to the interests of Washington, keeps more than 230 Venezuelan citizens in prison without accusation and right to defend themselves. Another reason for the march of the Venezuelan workers in this day, to demand the release of their compatriots.
To soon have in Venezuela and deliver in her arms to her mother this beautiful girl, Michaelis Espinosa. And very soon have in Venezuela the 253 Venezuelans kidnapped in the concentration camps of Nayib Bukele. God is watching Nayib Bukele. God is watching you. You know that you have committed one of the most serious errors of human rights violations: forced disappearance and kidnapping. But sooner rather than later there will be justice, and we will have our boys here, free, safe, and sound.
The President Nicolas Maduro closed the act, enveloping a crowd that listened to him with maximum attention, with a strong speech showing the harmony of people and their government. He promised to do all the possible efforts to rescue their kidnapped citizens. In the camera of Marcos da Silva, Bruno Falsi, Caracas, Venezuela, for teleSUR.
Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit the southern coast of Chile and Argentina. Chilean authorities have issued a tsunami alert for the region. The quake was registered at 8:58 a.m. local time, and its epicenter was located 218.1 kilometers south of Puerto Williams in Chile at a depth of 10 kilometers. Following the report, Chilean National Disaster Prevention and Response Service issued a tsunami alert, and authorities requested the evacuation of the southern coastal area, while no similar alert has been issued in Argentina. In this context, the Chilean President Gabriel Boric suspended his scheduled activities to monitor the evacuation measures from the government palace. At the time, no damage or casualties have been reported. In other news, in Ecuador, the Citizens Revolution Redo Coalition denounced an attempt of obstruction on the part of the National Electoral Council upon receiving its appeal to challenge the results of the second round of elections. Our colleague Gabriela Mena with the details.
It is official in Ecuador. The political coalition Citizens Revolution Redo challenged the results of the presidential elections held on April 13th. The documentation was delivered on Wednesday, April 30th, around 11 p.m., at which time the coalition publicly denounced that the National Electoral Council was seeking to obstruct the process.
We were here at the door of the National Electoral Council at 11:06 a.m. They opened the door for us. Here at the Secretariat we entered at 11:26 p.m. We asked for a receipt. But they began to count all the tally sheets, and they entered us at this time. At the time when they finished counting the tally, when they finished checking them.
Es decir, a las 2:30 de la mañana.
That is at 2:30 a.m. on May 1st. For the coalition, this decision alters the legal procedure, since, in its opinion, the National Electoral Council should have validated the exact time of arrival, and not the time at which the tallying of the tally sheets by the electoral personnel ended. On this occasion, 13,917 tally sheets with irregularities were delivered. Furthermore, according to the Citizens' Revolution, a total of 27,834 tally sheets have been delivered so far.
And here we are with all the anomalies and all the obstructions we have had from the National Electoral Council.
La organización también expresó que el
The organization also expressed that the National Electoral Council acts as a partial judge in benefit of Daniel Noboa, point with which different organizations, unions, and political analysts agree, who have emphasized that this arbitrariness must be denounced before the Ecuadorian authorities.
The announcements they are making are extremely serious, and this may constitute a critical news. If we had an independent prosecutor's office, which does not act selectively, the prosecutor's office should open an investigation and should carry out the proceedings urgently regarding this, because we must remember that electoral fraud is considered a criminal offense within the Organic Integral Penal Code.
Al momento la revolución no ha descartado
At the moment, the coalition has not discarded this option. However, for now, it remains expectant to the resolution to be taken by the plenary of the National Electoral Council, which will have to deal with the challenge in 3 days. According to several legislators of the Citizens' Revolution, the only thing they're looking for is that the elections of April 13th be transparent and that the Ecuadorian people be given a voice.
Estas irregularidades no solo afectan a la ciudadanía.
These irregularities not only affect the citizens, but also jeopardize the institutional credibility of the body in charge of guaranteeing the transparent electoral process, affects democracy and the will of millions of Ecuadorians who expect to trust in state institutions, while these bodies act as an appendix of power generating partiality in the electoral process.
Generando parcialidad en los procesos electorales.
Mientras tanto, la alianza se mantiene.
Meanwhile, the coalition remains one step ahead and signed that, in case of receiving a new refusal from the CNE, they will challenge the results before the contentious electoral court, which in a maximum of 15 days should decide whether or not to allow the challenge. The decision taken by the contentious electoral court may not be appealed.
No podrá ser apelada. Gabriela Mena, teleSUR Ecuador.
And in other news, the Trump administration abrogated the de minimis exception for goods imports from China. This way, via an executive order, Trump is to set a value equal or less than $800 to all imported merchandise which had been sent without postal network. This measure started to be enforced as of May the 2nd, which would affect shipments that were previously exempt from duties. Thus, it would benefit paramount e-commerce platforms such as Temu and Shein. Likewise, postal shipments with a value of up to $800 would face a 30% tariff of their worth or a flat rate of $25 per shipment, which would ramp up to $50 per shipment as of June 1st. And in Spain, the garbage workers' strike has ended in Madrid after 6 days, with workers achieving labor improvements after months of block negotiations. Still, the strike has left an image of unhealthiness in the city that still persists. Álvaro Fragua gives us more information.
The accumulation of garbage in Madrid's neighborhoods continues and is already causing a sanitation crisis. For days after the end of the waste collection strike, neighbors denounced the deterioration of the public space.
I don't know what is going on. The only thing I know is that it is a shame how Madrid is full of garbage, that there are rats in the streets at night, and it is a shame. Then all the blame is put on the left. And then what does the mayor do?
The crisis has not gone unnoticed by tourists. The image of Madrid has been affected by unemployment, the electricity blackout, and the slowness of the subsequent collection.
This is not the first time I've been in Madrid. I like the city a lot, but this time it's a little bit different than the others. I really think it's a little bit dirtier. There is a lot of garbage in the street, and this has impressed me.
Workers accuse the concessionaires of having blocked negotiations for months. According to them, the strike was the last resort to stop the cuts and sign a decent agreement.
We had been negotiating for an expired collective bargaining agreement for garbage collection in the city, and the companies did not reach any type of agreement. We had to reach a conflict and strike to solve the problem.
In view of the seriousness of the situation, Mayor Jose Martinez Almeida has defended the role of the Madrid City Council and announced fines of up to 1.6 million euros against companies for not respecting minimum services.
We are working so that between today and tomorrow morning normality can be restored also in the area of garbage collection. We have to start from the basis that there had been a garbage collection strike that had accumulated, that we are working to recover normality.
The unions claim that the workers have complied with the minimum services.
From the first moment, we have complied with the minimum services 100%. I don't know what the companies have done.
The strike ended leaving more than 8,000 tons of waste, but garbage bags are still piling up in the streets of many districts.
If the garbage is left uncollected for 6 days or 50% is collected, then it will take 3 or 4 days to collect the garbage again because the personnel is the same. No more personnel is hired and they have a daily workday.
The balance of the strike leaves a 24% wage increase over 6 years for the nearly 2,000 workers. Local residents and tourists are waiting for a return to normality, and the garbage conflict beyond the dirt has revealed the shortcomings of a privatized management model.
Álvaro Fragua, desde Madrid para teleSUR.
We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow the page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. We continue with more information. The Palestinian Authority in the Gaza Strip denounced that this Friday that the genocidal Israeli regime is using hunger as a weapon of war. The Gaza government press office denounced Israel's blockade and destruction of accesses to food, medical supplies, and other humanitarian supplies destined for the Palestinian people. In this regard, the authority stressed that these actions are a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention. Furthermore, the agency stressed that the Zionist siege caused the death of thousands of civilians, mainly children, and exposes others to the danger of starvation. In this context, the Indonesian Foreign Minister Harta Sudiono denounced on Thursday that Israel before the International Court of Justice for causing the worst humanitarian disaster of the 21st century in the Gaza Strip. The head of diplomacy declared that at the Court of The Hague, which is part of the sessions that would lead the United Nations General Assembly to preserve the rights of the Palestinian people. Sudiono recalled that the protection of human rights is not suspended in war times and recommended Israel respecting the functions of the international humanitarian organizations, including UNRWA. Overall, the minister reaffirmed that his country rejected the forced displacement of thousands of Palestinians from their lands. A ship belonging to the Freedom Flotilla initiative carrying humanitarian aid and activists to Gaza was attacked by a drone in the early hours of Friday in international waters off Malta. The Conscience vessel, which had 12 crew members and 4 activists on board, was approximately 22.5 kilometers east of Malta when it suffered 2 attacks from a drone. The strikes, which appeared to have been deliberately targeting the generator, left the crew without power and put the vessel at serious risk of sinking. Activists on board the ship were reportedly on a mission to challenge Israel's illegal siege of Gaza and to deliver aid amid the humanitarian crisis in the Strip. In this context, the Freedom Flotilla International Coalition pointed to the Zionist regime as the strike's main possible perpetrator. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Defense Minister Israel Katz announced on Friday that the occupation forces had taken the offensive near the presidential palace in Damascus, capital of Syria. The Israeli forces targeted those who had been their allies in overthrowing the al-Assad government. The Zionist incursion occurred amid clashes between the Druze minority and pro-government fighters. In this context, the Prime Minister said Israel wouldn't allow the sending of forces to the south of Damascus or another threat to the Druze community. This in the context of an internal conflict between ethnic groups and factions in Syria, triggered by the coup d'etat staged by terrorist forces who are now in power. And the Burkinabe people took to the streets on Thursday to express their support for General and President Ibrahim Traoré, alongside the entire military junta that he leads. Demonstrations happened in the face of threats to a coup d'etat and dangerous statements made by generals from the Pentagon. The Burkinabe population gathered in the country's capital to defend him and repudiate the statements of the head of the U.S. Armed Forces in Africa, Michael Langley, whom they described as a slave. The Burkinabe government took over its gold resources to invest them in social programs, and such management was labeled by the Washington official in a Senate hearing as threatening. These allegations coincided with an insurrectional movement neutralized by the Traoré administration. And the Vatican entered the countdown to the elections of Pope Francis' successor with an extensive technological deployment to shield the security of the upcoming conclave. This way, the smokestack has already been installed, and the Vatican has informed on the implementation of a full digital blackout to prevent any attempt at electronic espionage. The initiative was explained by the director of the Vatican press room, who stated that in the digital era, extreme measures must be taken to guarantee the secrecy of the conclave in an inviolable way and demand to the process since the 13th century. Out of the 190 cardinals who took part in the days of reflection after the pontiff's passing, 100 will hold the responsibility of electing the new pope. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.